Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements from Santa Monica, California, United States of America. Today, June 1st, 2021. I'm beginning a new series of talks until June 25th when I depart from LA on the crisis in Burma, also known as Myanmar, specifically from a psychological and a world Dharma perspective that includes the intimacy of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Today's talk, Freedom. Before I begin, may I encourage you, this series of talks for the next 25 days, God willing, are about all of us who care about freedom, who care about psychological liberty, who care about environmental sanctity, safety, democracy. We must activate. And may I encourage you to encourage your social media tribe, your intimates. Be a force multiplier, be a digital activist. And may I encourage you to repeatedly share these videos today throughout the 25th of June. Spread them far and wide. Include a comment if you wish. Send them to ambassadors in the United Nations. Send them to the White House here in the United States, to our governors, mayors, congressmen, congresswomen, senators, prime ministers, religious leaders, Dharma teachers, mindfulness coaches, anyone and everywhere who's a thought leader, everywhere in your friends page, on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. The safety, the preservation, the freedom of Myanmar is the freedom of the globe, the freedom of the world. We are not separate. So may I dive in today to the topic of the crisis in Burma. Many of you know that I've spent a good portion of my adult life in Burma. I read a book by the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw 50 years ago this year called Satipatthana Vipassana Insight Meditation Instructions. It changed my life. It was the catalyst for me to go overland to India, to Burma, to eventually meet the Venerable meditation teacher and Dhamma savant, Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, in his home village in the north of Burma, where I asked him if I could ordain as a monk. He explained to me, no, you can't. Visas are confined to only 7 days based upon being under the oppressive leadership or lack of leadership of a dictatorship. Here it is 50 years later. I owe my Dhamma life to these monks and nuns in Burma. It is my first home, not my second home. My heart is there. I carry it with me everywhere I go. Here, at this stage of my life, I don't know how long I will live, none of us do. However, in the sanctity of this refuge here in Los Angeles, I want to use these final 25 days, God willing, to support the 54 million people of Myanmar, the imprisoned civilian leadership, starting with the president, U Win Myint, the state councilor, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, also the Nobel Peace Laureate, my very dear friend U Win Tain, 80 years old, the senior most, along with U Tin U, my very dear friend and mentor, who lives in Rangoon at 92 years old, the senior most members of the National League for Democracy, which is under unbelievable, violent threat at this very moment, along with the persecution of the people. Okay, just to frame this series of talks, may I encourage you, please, be force multipliers. Send these videos out as far and wide as possible. The window of opportunity to support the beloved people of Burma is very narrow. Pause, Alan. Many years ago, and I've been saying this over and over again, and I think it's important to reiterate time and time again, His Holiness the Dalai Lama of Tibet, a renowned embodiment of nonviolence and peace, said close to 3 decades ago, if we do not act immediately, meaning the world and the people of the world who care about freedom and democracy, if we do not act immediately, there'll be no Tibet to save. I draw that absolute parallel with Burma. If we do not act immediately, there'll be no Myanmar or Burma to save. The same could have been said for Hong Kong. We did not act. The government leaders did not act. The United Nations did not act. There is no Hong Kong to save. It's under unthinkable threat. It's over. The boys and girls who led that revolution for well over a year are incarcerated. Their families are being imprisoned. They're in mainland China. They are pretty much a forgotten activist group. Tiananmen Square, 1989. Who are those people? Where are they? 1988 in Burma, 8888. How many years ago was that? A long forgotten footnote. Let's not forget it. The Saffron Revolution, 2007. I was communicating last night with one of the leaders, the former monk, Ugambira, who is now in Australia. I don't want to be historically referred to. Let us rise to the occasion here in the month of June to do everything that we possibly can to resurrect, to challenge our apathy, to see our interconnectedness, to deeply involve ourselves in the Dhamma of democracy, the world Dharma of freedom, the radiance of freedom, the beauty of universal human rights, the beauty of activism under a democracy to support people who are oppressed. We are force multipliers. May I encourage you to encourage your tribe, your social networks, your husband, your wife, your children, your grandparents, your mother and father, your friends, anyone and everyone in your Dharma circle, in your church circle, wherever you go, to synagogues, to Buddhist monasteries. The country and the world is opening up. Despite COVID, may I encourage you to act. Burma as a whole is under threat. If we do not act, there'll be no Burma to save. Okay. Nice to see you. Thank you for tuning in. This is a very passionate topic for me, and I want to do all that I can to illuminate why Burma matters to me. I can't speak from anyone else's perspective. But why am I so passionate? Why am I so respectful? Why do I feel so obligated to the people of Burma, to the nuns in Burma, to the monks in Burma, to the activists in Burma, to the Muslims in Burma, to the Jews in Burma, to the Catholics in Burma, to the atheists in Burma, to the 135 different ethnicities in Burma, to the 100 different dialects and languages in Burma, to the people who have died in Burma, to the people right now in the prisons of Burma, over 5,000 people, journalists, nuns, monks, filmmakers, teachers, professors, administrators, civil servants, taxi drivers, bus drivers. They want freedom, and as a result of that, they have been stolen and kidnapped from their homes, their farms, their villages, and it's an unbelievable satanic assault on the good people of that country. A complex tapestry. The good people of that country are being radically oppressed, I want to reiterate, by the latest terrorist council, terrorist organization on planet Earth, known as MAHSAC, MASAC. Allow me to explain. Ming Online was the former senior general of the Burmese Thamada a dignified institution decades back started by Aung San Suu Kyi, who was imprisoned, and we do not know where she is right now, by her father, General Aung San. She faces life imprisonment, and it's likely it will happen. I want to prevent that. Ma Sack. He is the latest iteration of a series of dictators under General Ne Win, Tan Shui, a few others in between and above, and now Ming Online. Formerly a senior general, decorated up the wazoo with a uniform like a Halloween costume for the devil. I don't mean to insult him. He insults everyone. It's called Let's Be Straight. Time is short. Let's not mix our words. Let's rise to the occasion, and let's absolutely create change in Burma before there is no Tibet or Burma or Hong Kong to save. It could be America. It could be Canada. It could be Australia. It could be Germany. It could be Portugal. It could be Spain. It could be anywhere in the world. Burma is part of our planet. And what is happening there is nothing short than a man and an institution, a cult of guns and toxic masculinity, supported by the genocidal dictator of China, Xi Jinping, oppressing his own 1.4 billion people in a communist Chinese party, and Putin from Russia with the arms, have now decided to adopt Ming Online and his military terrorist group known as SAC, State Administration Council, MASAC. Please refer to that acronym, identical to Boko Haram in Africa, identical to Al-Qaeda, identical to the Taliban in Afghanistan, identical to Pol Pot. You may wonder, are they the Khmer Rouge? Are we on the verge of a genocide? Hello, I wrote a book in 1990 called Burma, the Next Killing Fields. Ask the Karen people about genocide. Ask the Rakhine people, the Rohingyas, about ethnic cleansing. Ask the Kaya people, the Chin people, the Shan people, the Kachin people about unremitting warfare upon these indigenous people. Ask the Buddhists of the country, unremitting persecution of the people. Where's the Dharma of this? Where's the psychology of this? Where's the emotionality of this? Where's the mindful and the relevance of Dharma and compassion and loving kindness and yoga? I want to bring over and into this dialogue over the course of the coming 24 days until June 25th when I leave here, God willing. I want to do all I can to interweave my own understanding of meditation, of satipatthana, vipassana, human rights, democracy in action, activism, theater, poetry, satire. My book, Extinction X-Rated, is intimately integrated into the very issue of democracy and universal human rights and Burma. I want to integrate everything I can possibly bring to the forefront of my being in these series of talks, not just about politics in Burma, about good and evil, right and wrong alone. May I encourage you, be a force multiplier. Send these videos around the world over and over and over again, especially the people from Myanmar. Activate, deliver, elevate, share to the Burma groups, to the activist groups, to the civil disobedience groups. Whatever you can do to promote your country. Send this out. Become so tired and fatigued by sharing that Facebook blocks you because you share too frequently. It is now or never. There will be no Burma to save, and we want to prevent that. And we can do that if enough people rise in fidelity to the importance of Burma as a member of the global family, but also to really appreciate, especially for the people who have been there, the Westerners that have been there, the Westerners that teach in the lineage of Burma. One must begin to feel the loyalty, the fidelity. What is my integrity? What is my Dharma? And do I honor my elders, my people who right now are dying, bleeding, being tortured and assassinated in the name of democracy? Ming Online has the audacity to bastardize that concept, and it is a euphemism for satanic totalitarianism. The point here, the big point, I don't say this as an alarmist, but I'm very politically aware. I read the news, I study, I look deeply, I cross-section my own mind. I feel that we're on the verge of a global totalitarianism. It's not an original thought at all, but I studied this along with my colleague Fergus Harlow in our books, Burma's Voices of Freedom, for the last, I'd say, 35 years. These books took 8.5 years, 30, 40 trips on the ground in Burma to discuss with their leaders, many of them dead now, on the nature, the psychology of psychology, this deep psychology of totalitarianism and dictatorship. What does it mean to stand up? What does it mean to fight the propaganda, the information war of a dictator who owns the media, who incarcerates journalists, filmmakers, activists, elected civilians? What does it mean to rise up nonviolently, to confront injustice? What does it mean to protect your mind from the onslaught of propaganda? These topics are worldwide right now. They're in our country, they're in America, they're in our schools, they're in our churches, they're in our synagogues, they're in our meditation centers, they're in our books. We could be easily co-opted by these particular forms of toxic propaganda. The Fourth Reich is upon us, and it's coming out of China. There's a reason why Mr. Biden sanctioned and sent 7 aircraft carrier groups to the South China Sea. Right now, en route and or in that South China Sea area between the mainland China and Taiwan, very near to Burma. Burma and Yunnan province in southern China, adjacent, a 1,200-mile border. I was in Burma during the beginning of the CCP virus, the Wuhan virus, the Chinese virus out of the Wuhan biolab. Burma is this close to becoming a province of mainland totalitarian China. And just like in many areas of that country of Myanmar and within Burma and within China, Burma will be run by a warlord, a satanic warlord, Ming Online at the moment. And there'll be another incarnation of dictatorship there, where the Belt and Road Initiative, they want the oil. They want the gas. Chevron and Total not giving Ming Online cash is only about 10% of the money that they do give to support a terrorist organization. That must stop. The issue of complicity is something I'm going to speak about very rapidly and continually throughout these talks. Complicity and collusion. I was reading somewhere along the way that even when the Allied soldiers liberated Germany from Adolf Hitler, many people, only on those final days of the Allied soldiers entering Germany in the big cities, did the people, the intellectuals, the writers, the psychologists, the psychoanalysts, the doctors, the teachers, take down portraits of Adolf Hitler from their wall. This is after nearly 20 million people have been killed, 10 to 12 million exterminated with cyanide. And there's this level of collusion as if Hitler himself is some kind of savior. What are we thinking as a species to be that deluded in these narratives? And yet we think of ourselves as living in a free mind, in a free country, and in control of our psychological, mental, spiritual faculties. We must radically discern the state of mind called collusion and complicity with internal and external forms of manipulation, misinformation, disinformation, and deep propaganda. Meditation, in many ways, could be understood as the study of indoctrination, how to liberate oneself from the propaganda of fear, greed, delusion that often masquerade as joy, insight, and freedom itself. We're all political animals today on this planet. No one is free from the influences of psychology, of social issues, of cultural issues. We must rise up as revolutionaries, deeply embodying our fidelity to freedom and universality of human rights and to democracy. We must co-join, I feel, our meditation, our yoga, with the courage to care about things larger than our own self-interest. To quote the incarcerated Nobel laureate in Burma right now, Aung San Suu Kyi. I'm going to get into her over the course of the coming talks, as well as many of my other friends, teachers, and mentors, some of them alive, many of them have passed away. May I encourage you, as you're listening to this talk, if you're just tuning in, be a force multiplier, especially if you're from Myanmar in Burma. You should be forwarding this talk to everyone that you know with the caption, please share repeatedly until Facebook blocks you from sharing. There will be no Burma to save if we don't act. And we must multiply ourselves by 1 to 100 to 10,000 to 100,000 people, to 1 million of us in the world that are joining digital hands and hearts in solidarity with Aung San Suu Kyi, the President U Win Myint, the people of that country who are craving and crying and fighting and bleeding and yearning and struggling against all odds to continue a civil disobedience movement, a revolution of the spirit, as Aung San Suu Kyi called it back in '88, and continues to call the nonviolent struggle for freedom. We must join hands. Do not stop. This is the time to become so fatigued in our compassion and our love of freedom. My days are numbered, whether it be tonight, 10 years, or 20 years. I've got a whole other curriculum coming up post Los Angeles, God willing, should I live. But meanwhile, I'm going to dedicate every day of my life until June 25th to rising up in radiance to support my beloved spiritual Dharma homeland, the birthplace of my activism, the understanding of democracy as inseparable from Dhamma, and learn to use the activated needs in my own heart not to sit still, to rise up and support the boys and girls. Pause. Martin Niemoller, the famous Lutheran priest, ad nauseum. Could it ever be used as ad nauseum? The epic poem. A Nazi sympathizer who went to Auschwitz. He said, first they came and got the communist, and because I was a Lutheran priest, I didn't speak up. First they came and got the civilian elected democratic leaders of Burma, but because I'm an American in Los Angeles and a Buddhist, I sort of listened, but I don't really feel the interrelatedness of their lives and my lives. Yeah, they like democracy. Yeah, they're meditators, they're practitioners, but hey man, I trained in Burma, I was there for 47 minutes. and I have my PhD in enlightenment, and I've got my centers in the West, in the West Coast, at the East Coast, up my butt, in my brain, in my apathy. But hey, man, but you know, I'm a kind of Western Buddhist teacher living in my mansion with my ghostwriters and social media mavericks. No offense to you, you're an offending person. But hey, you know, I listened, but hey, man, that Mr. Clements is, you know, he's unhinged. He's just so arrogant, and I can't hear anything from him anyway. It's like excuses, excuses, excuses. And then the Lutheran priest, Martin Niemoller says, you know, of course, you know, I was a Lutheran priest. I didn't say anything. The communists, fuck the communists. They came and got the trade unionists. I uphold the Bible. Trade unionists, they give donations to the church. Thank you very much. There's lots of other people who give donations. So I didn't do anything. I didn't even say anything in my Sunday sermon. Look at all the ways in which we abscond from global intimacy. Look at all the ways that we hide, deflect, and take down our own activist courage as a mother would her only child. If Aung San Suu Kyi were your sister, child, daughter, and now I'm the mother, you would not run away. You'd be Niemoller. You would say, then they came and got the Buddhist meditators. Well, quite frankly, the Buddhist meditators, they're so pathetic. All they're concerned with is profit, likes, swipes, money, dana, cost. They like to say the same old goddamn stories. They have no respect for Jesus, a token inclusivity of other faiths. They live in mansions. Get rid of the dudes. Aung San Suu Kyi, she's a handmaiden of genocide, man. You know, Bob Geldof knows everything in the world, man. He knows her so well when he threw back his Edinburgh Freedom of Conscience Award. And I'm not going to touch the bitch. Sorry to say, she's kind of got what she deserves. Let's lay it on, a little misogyny, a little toxic misogyny on the bitch, you know? It's like, I'm a Lutheran priest, and hey, man, she's a handmaiden of genocide. I like the people, but hey, man, look at all the people in the United Nations. Look at all the people around the world right now. I kind of gave her the good years of my life, the benefit of the doubt, but when she had power, she became just like the dictators, just a sycophant for authoritarianism. And the way she threw the Rohingya Muslims under the bus and went to The Hague and defended Ming online on charges of genocide. And you want us to help her right now, Mr. Clements? Are you unhinged? Are you a loser like her? Look at all the ways in which our beloved Martin Niemoller gets vilified in his epic poem. And then they came and got the women, the democratically elected women. And because I was a repressed misogynist priest, I kind of went back to my room and salivated in the joy of knowing they're getting rid of those women. And I just carried on with, let's love all beings, overcome our prejudice. They know not what they do. Think of all the ways that we live in hypocrisy and the ways in which we deflect the intimacy of compassion. I mean, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, where are you, sir? Where do you and your handlers stand in this crisis? Why are you not speaking up, sir? May I encourage you, just like you said about your country of Tibet. Desmond Tutu, where are you? Where are all the meditation teachers around the world that teach mindfulness? Where are you? May I invite you Set aside grievances and attitudes and judgments. And may I encourage you to rise up in the most radical, creative expression and imagine around your meditation centers, your urban centers, your online digital workshops, wherever you have your story, your source of income, your worth, and you've got the brown shirts coming to burn your books, to point a finger at you, and all of a sudden you see the lockstep of the Nazi Third Reich, and all of a sudden they're putting stars on you and me. They're putting numbers now tattooed on your arm, and now they're putting you in things known as ghettos. And first they came and got the communists, the trade unionists, the Buddhist meditation teachers, the women. And then they came and got the boys and girls wanting democracy in Hong Kong. But because I lived in Philadelphia and I was a preacher, I mean, I've been to Hong Kong on a few trips and bought some really good clothing and had a great time there, with electronics and tax-free everything. And God, what happened? How do you pronounce their names? They're not really part of my paradigm, my world. Could there ever be enough satire, comedy, humor, tears to invoke in us around the world right now the need to rise up in our compassion? Pause. Let me be outrageous here. I've got what's known as a fatal diagnosis, and I'm saying to it, fuck it. I'm not saying no to surgery. I'm just saying no to it at this time. It's a blunt force. I'm not looking forward to having my chest carved open and shuffling my feet 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, and who knows what, blah, blah, blah. I'm irrelevant. I'm going to do what I can to heal. I'm going into retreat soon, a love retreat, a poetry retreat. I'm going to take some time off. But I have been blessed, jokingly, with the few people I'm talking to. Now that I'm dying, I cannot believe how much I'm loved. And you do know who don't like you. No matter what you've done historically with a lot of people, and you can be sure they already know, oh, Alan's dying. Well, he's kind of a little bit of applause, a little bit of no text, no email. You got to really drop the weight of thinking that anyone in the world owes you something, because you got to really know who your friends are. By way of saying, I feel so fucking liberated, so grateful. The love is so healing. The feeling of being cared for is so enlivening. Last night I went to bed, I was meditating, I woke up at about 1:30, and I lied there on my bed, put my hands over my heart, put the pillows against the wall as I normally do, in breath, out breath, and visualizing my heart. And then all of a sudden I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude to the people in my life. So many of them I don't even know, that send beautiful little lines of text, that not the ones that ask, how are you doing and what do you need? Send me a couple of $1,000, send $1 million. I need some Bitcoin and some Ethereum and some Chainlink, okay? Put it into a wallet in my name. That's what I need. And how do I feel? It hurts. It sucks to be dying. At the same time, the gratitude, the creative ways in which people are loving is so rad, so cool. It takes a recognition of dying to feel the love of belonging. Burma is dying on our watch. It's a meditative, trans-religious, revolutionary culture. It's Gandhi and Martin Luther King and the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu and Aung San Suu Kyi, all wrapped into the theology of the great activist goddess of Avalokiteshvara and the Buddha. They live in metta, in compassion, in discernment. They're meditators. And great diversity, shoulder to shoulder. How many people? Read the books that Ferguson and I put together. Burma's Voices of Freedom. I would like to say they're probably the best Dharma books ever written outside of the Tipitaka, the Pali Canon. Not about Ferguson and I, but because they bring to life, how did you keep freedom alive under the most incredibly oppressive conditions? These people, the people of Burma, and they're about to go into a colossal, multifaceted civil war with urban guerrilla tactics. It's happening now as we speak. May I invite you, China is on the march. Burma is the next Tibet. Hear me, quote me. They got the labor, they got the Ming Online, the satanic leader. They've got the oil pipeline from the Bay of Bengal all the way to Yunnan province, across the mainland of Burma. They get the gas, they get the oil, they get the slave labor, they get the controlling entity, the terrorist organization controlled by greed and profit. You torture people through either persecution or giving them so much money and power and wealth, but equally keep in control, and they'll do anything that a puppet would do. Ming Online is a terrorist puppet for Xi Jinping. End of story. Ming Online and his State Administration Council, MASAC, again, it's the Taliban of South Asia. It's the Khmer Rouge of Burma. Ming Online is a Pol Pot in the making. He has a history of ethnic cleansing and genocide. I wrote a book about it 30 years ago. The prisons have been filled with unthinkable levels of horrific rape and torture. The dude is unhinged. I'm going to get into this over time. But he is a puppet of the nuclear-powered, sociopathic, genocidal, global desire dominator, Xi Jinping of China, not the people of China. What happened in Hong Kong is happening in Burma, and they're using the terrorist Ming Online and his MASAC terrorist council as a way to control the country. Why? It's so obvious. The same way America wants oil and gas and slave labor around the world, we sell guns and we support, hello, Saudi Arabia, to oppress Yemen. Forever wars, Mr. Biden, Mr. Obama, forever wars? That is Orwellian as it gets. Well, Xi Jinping is the forever Belt and Road Initiative. Let's control through power and money. And when you confront our narrative, look what they're doing to Australia right now. You screw with us, little Australia, and you're done, man. Trade embargoes. A threat of kinetic war to Australia? A country of what, 30 million people in Australia? That's not even the size of, half of the size of, one of the 35 provinces of China. There's no chance that Australia could control itself or protect itself from Xi Jinping if they wanted. But they don't need to fire rockets and missiles. All they need to do is fire the absence of money and trade, and a country dissolves based upon this dominator metaphor called the Belt and Road Initiative. And Burma is their ruby, just like it was with Winston Churchill's father in the 1800s in India. The white supremacist out of England did exactly what China's Xi Jinping did to Burma. Let's pluck Burma and give it to the Queen. The totalitarian government in England is now in China. Let's pluck Myanmar just like we did to Tibet. It wasn't some ideological thing that we hate Buddhism alone. We want their water, we want their nomads, we want their iron ore, we want their rare minerals, we want everything that they've got to support and to resource Tibet for the people, for the elite people of China. It's a resource grab and a slavery grab, an oil grab. We talk about the Paris Accord. We remember, what's her name? Greta Thunberg, from what country is that? Sweden? Sidelined, telling the United Nations, there's no world to save in a couple of years. I want no more of your magical thinking about monetary needs. China has more coal plants going online than the entire world right now. Totally overlooked. You don't hear President Biden, the United Nations, and other EU leaders talking about that. All we hear about is, like, Telsa and Mr. Musk talking about the imprint of mining Bitcoin, like the size of a country of Yugoslavia, not even, or Lithuania. When China, more coal going online right now, and guess what? Their pollution is not confined to China. There's actually a global malaise based on the toxicity of this increasing element of toxicity and carbon in the air. Hello? Burma is the next Tibet. It's not just Burma. And soon as the Reverend Martin Niemoller said, then they came and got the Americans. And because I was, let's see, who am I now? Because I was everyone else in the world that doesn't like Americans. They got great music, they've got super rad creative movies, although they're sold out to China in Hollywood. The corporate media sucks in Burma, in America. When I think about standing up for America, I think I'm going to bow out. Hitler, take them. Take all 337 million of them. They're just a plague on the earth with their needs, their lies, their forever wars. Can you just semi-gas them and make them suffer and make them writhe in the horror of their behavior rather than just taking them out completely? How can I say this? Leave the blacks, leave the minorities, but take Wall Street, take Silicon Valley, and take Washington. Take the swamp, take Wall Street, and take Silicon Valley. If you don't mind, I'm a Lutheran priest, and I can find money, and I'll get Wi-Fi from some other source. And Washington is a waste. Think of that. That's not even probably a decent skit on Saturday Night Live. And yet, there is no Tibet to save. There is no Hong Kong to save. There are no 11 million Jews under Hitler to save. There are no lesbians. There are no queers. There are no gays. There are no trade unionists. There are no communists. They're gone. Burma will be gone. Buddhism will be gone. Islam will be gone. Ethnicities will be gone. Diversity will be gone. Democracy will be gone. We'll see factory farming in Burma like animal farming in America. will see animal factory farming in Burma to build, construct clothing and plastics and cars and guns. I have been there. I've been on the ground in these places. I am a deep investigative journalist, along with being a meditator and a lover of world Dharma and human rights and democracy. I have seen these encampments of slavery. I have talked to these people. I know these people. I feel them as sisters and brothers. Xi Jinping has already established the Belt and Road Initiative in Burma. Hear me out. It's not about Burma and about Aung San Suu Kyi did this or didn't do that. A remarkably profound, complicated woman. Is she a team member? Way cool. Are the other civilian leaders in that country? They are so rad. Killed, tortured, raped. Can we hear the 5,000 boys and girls, men and women, nuns and monks in the gulags in Burma right now screaming out, applauding, I say, this talk? They know that I'm one of their allies. I want you to be a force multiplier, everyone out there who I've never met. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again for 25 days in a row until I leave, God willing. If you're hearing this talk at any point in this talk, pause, share so much that Facebook bans you from sharing for 3 days, and then share so much that they ban you again for 3 days. Put it into every Burma group worldwide, every human rights group worldwide, every Burma activist group worldwide, every elected official worldwide, every journalist, every newspaper, every radio show, Democracy Now!, NPR. Let them hear the voice of someone who has lived in that country off and on for 4.5 decades. I know that country as well as any Westerner in the world. I am discerning. Yes, there are problems, but they are a gifted diamond country. In the emergence of a democracy the world has never seen, with leaders that are so courageous, so ethically rooted, give them a chance. They've been traumatized by 130 years of white imperialistic genocidal occupation by England. Just like what happened in Canada. Just like the exposing of the 231 children who were massacred recently and discovered recently in Canada. Why? How? The white wave of oppression, genocidal imperialism. Think of the millions of American Indians, the genocidal wave. Think of the indigenous people of Australia, the genocidal wave. China is doing the same thing, but in a different way. It's an information war. It's a control war. It's a war on the psyche, on our souls. The ideology of totalitarianism is the obliteration of the numismatic. It hates spirituality. It does not want you to worship at the altar of your goddess. It is anti-spirituality. It is the emperor above God. The metastasizing of that ideology is most exemplified in China today and in Russia today. And if we're not careful, it'll spread around the world, and our boys and girls and their children, if they're so lucky to give birth, will live like like livestock under a totalitarian world government run by Xi Jinping and the offshoots of that totalitarian genocidal dictatorship. It is coming. The march is on. First they came and got the Tibetans. They came and got the Hong Kong. They came and got the Tiananmen Square activists. They came and got the Burma activists. And guess what? They're after you, and they're after me. The Lutheran priest. God, I love American music. I love American theater. But God, there's so much wrong with that culture, just their arrogance. We're the best country in the world that's ever lived, the bravado, the blah, blah, blah. It's like, whatever your attitude is about Burma, may I encourage you, first-time activists, whether you're 7 years old or 17 years old or 107 years old or somewhere before, after, or in between, whether you're a Jew, a Buddhist, a yogi, German, Portuguese, Spanish, Catholic, Muslim, whatever you are, Burma is a hot zone. The Dalai Lama said 3 decades ago, we all love His Holiness. Where are you, Mr. Holiness? Speak up for Aung San Suu Kyi. Speak up for freedom. Speak up for the Dharma. Speak up for Buddhism. Speak up for multi-faith. Speak up for universal human rights. Speak up, because speaking up is what's appropriate right now. Because if you don't speak up, there'll be no Dalai Lama to save. There'll be no Desmond Tutu to save. There'll be no Nobel laureate women to save. It'll all be under threat. We'll be behind bars. We'll be slave laborers with masks on our minds, not just on our mouths. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of action is under direct assault around the world, acutely in Burma. They are killing freedom-loving boys and girls. They're assassinating them. They are sending photographs throughout the country. If you stand up in alignment with the elected civilian government, a bullet through your head. Today in Burma, tomorrow in America, Canada, Portugal, Germany, England, France, Spain, Africa, South America, Australia, Canada, New Zealand. Where are we, global democratic lovers of freedom and human rights? Let us overcome our apartheid and stand in solidarity and learn more creative expressions of compassion and radical action. Demand that the United Nations act in solidarity to protect the people of Burma. I implore President Biden, send an aircraft attack group to the Bay of Bengal. United Nations Security Council, get off your sorry, apathetic, sold out asses and act. Speak up, ambassadors from all the countries in the world, France, Germany, Albania. Speak up and get over the prejudice of thinking the people of Burma or Aung San Suu Kyi or the elected leaders are not worthy of support, or that a press release is sufficient to satisfy your conscience. It's ill, it's wrong, it's toxic apathy. You are not in that position to sit there in the way that you are. Let's stand in solidarity, show the world the luminosity of a revolution of a global spirit. Let the people of Burma cry with joy, not cry with trauma. Everyone in the world who needs to heal their trauma, heal it through activism. Pause anxiety, pause individual stress, pause individual trauma. Rise up in unity and solidarity. Stand tall in the radiance. What can you do? Start with, if you hear me, don't go back and turn away and write your book or watch your Netflix special. Don't go back out and masturbate to your needs and your fears. Don't commend or condemn me because I'm brash or I'm arrogant or whatever. I'm irrelevant. Hear the words through all the filtering. First, they came and got the Jews in Vancouver. No, they first came and got the Jews in New York. And because I was a Buddhist Catholic in Omaha, never really liked New York. Bye. Could you imagine 100,000 years from now, 1,000,000 years from now, that this video is fossilized in the genome of antiquity, paralyzed deep in the earth somewhere, and someone hears this talk, they decode it, And they go, my God, this gentleman is talking about a thing called intimate, inseparable interrelatedness. He's talking about a country that existed way over there and how it was connected to over here. And that gap was seen as insurmountable because people lived in the propaganda of separation, and they couldn't overcome that psychological conundrum through their meditation, their yoga, their drugs, their psychedelic, their dosing, their high dosing, their masturbation, their sex, their apathy. And this guy named Martin Niemoller had a poem that was so epic about first they came and got, but my God, what's the essence of this talk? Intimate interrelatedness, freedom over fear. Act now to support over there, or the next is here. Decode, oh my God, we belong to an inseparable world, a holism where no place is separate from the other. Oh my God, an insight into the nature of the human mind. Let us take this, let us put an image around our neck. Let's worship this truth. Let's call it freedom to care about things larger than our own self-interest, the new religion post-extinction. We've got to get it right on our watch, or there's no Tibet to save, there's no Hong Kong to save, there's no Burma to save, there'll be no Australia to save, there'll be no Melbourne to save, there'll be no Sydney to save, there'll be no Philadelphia to save, there'll be no Biden's legacy to save, there'll be no libraries to save, there'll be nothing to save, there'll be no Silicon Valley to save. The only one that will survive will be Mark Zuckerberg in his fortress on Kauai, because he built a dome of protection, and he has the immortality artificial intelligence gene, and he and his wife and his few friends, and they lived 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 so long that all they thought about is dying, and they couldn't die because they were artificially now reborn forever and ever and ever, and they thought it was a nightmare because they lost their souls in the process of privilege and money and profit and the big digital dome of immortality, the tumor of immortality. We've got to act. What does it take? Send this video. Share, 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 share. Exhaust your fingers from sharing. Why not? Ask yourself every hour rather than simply meditating for 5 minutes. Share, 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 share again. Find more creative ways to whom to share it to. Ask them to share it. What are you waiting for? The death of the planet? What are you waiting for? The death of the planet? What are you waiting for? The death of freedom? What are you waiting for? The death of human rights? What are you waiting for? They'll never come to get me. I live in a condominium on the east coast of America in the Hamptons. And you know what? The Hamptons are immune to totalitarianism. I hear you, Mr. Clements. It's very interesting. In fact, if you don't mind, will you come to Broadway and do this as a one-man show? Or do you want a movie deal or a book deal? No, 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 no. I want you to act with all of your wealth and stealth, all of your money and your power, to give this video as a low dose of reality to President Biden. I'll give it with a lot of acid. It'll dissolve. He'll never know it. And all of a sudden he'll go, hello, aircraft group Nimitz, Bay of Bengal. He'll think it came from him. He'll paint 3 fingers on the flight deck of that Nimitz. The boys and girls, all 3,800 of them, enlisted soldiers and military people, will proudly salute. Finally, we have a reason to believe in the efficacy of our choice to defend foreign policy rather than forever wars. They'll stand in conscience. They will salute God like they've never saluted it before. The boys and girls in Burma will now be fed medical supplies, money, digital money, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Chainlink, Ripple, Stellar, tether, whatever, get the bucks to them, get the money to the ethnic minorities around the country, support, elevate, feed, heal. And then when you feel the power, Mr. Biden, and all of the prime ministers around the world are high-fiving each other, we got off our sorry ass because their wives and their husbands said, listen to the poem of the Reverend Martin Niemoller, now made famous by some rad hip-hop artist who's singing those lyrics in modern time to make it relevant to the activism of now. Save the world or die. Save Burma. Save democracy. Save freedom. Do everything humanly imaginable at this time to support the people of that country. Support the best in you. There's something beautiful about knowing, and I know you know that. I'm not trying to preach to you about this. But I know there's something so empowering to couple our mindfulness, to couple our godliness, to couple our holiness, to couple our reverence for Jesus, Christ, Allah, Buddha, the goddess, the tantrika of the universe, the divine feminine. There's something so beautiful about coupling action, compassion, loving kindness, creative activism for freedom and democracy, that my freedom and your freedom, Ubuntu, are inseparable. In the absence of the South African concept of Ubuntu, we have apartheid. In the absence of Ubuntu, we have totalitarianism. Be watchful of how we ingest the propaganda that decodes Ubuntu into I don't care. I wish I knew what I could do. The very least of what you can do. Put up on your Facebook page or your Instagram page or your Twitter page. Tweet, forward, share, comment. Send this video everywhere that you can imagine sending it, over and over and over and over and over again, till you are blocked by your friends, unfriended by your friends, because you know what? You are the late Lutheran priest Martin Niemoller. You and me, we are him and her. Post-Holocaust, he signed the Declaration of Guilt. I'll end here. Look it up online, the Declaration of Guilt. We knew and we did not act. 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 We felt and we did not respond to that feeling. We knew and felt and we did not act and feel based upon that. We denied our conscience. We denied our compassion. We denied, I personalize it. I knew and I did not act on my conscience. I deflected. I talked myself out of it with the convenience of comfort, privilege, profit, and apathy in politics. Well, may I invite you as I end today, as a beginning of this series, on behalf of Burma, from a world Dharma and a psychological perspective, may I invite you to meditatively talk yourself into it. Give yourself a cognitive, existential, spiritual, political struggle lesson. Talk your apathy, talk your fear, talk your deflection out of apathy, and rise up into your own Martin Niemoller. Support Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, support U Win Myint, support the people of Burma, support democracy, support freedom, do everything you possibly can. Make this video known to every elected leader in our country of America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all of the EU, all of South America, make this video known everywhere. Translate it into your respective language. Cut sound bites if you have video skills, auditory skills. Cut sections out, send it out. Do everything to be a force multiplier. Let us act on behalf of the children that aren't yet born. Let us just not quote clever, empowering poems by those who survived the death camps. Let's never do it again. Let's never forget through action. What does it take to get through to the deepest levels of our shadow and our darkness of denial? Break through. Act in conscience before there's no one left to save you. Save you. There's no one left to save you and your family, your daughter, your children, your own sense of identity. So from my heart to yours, thank you. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for the gifts of your love and your gratitude for my well-being. Thank you for your support. And God willing, I hope to see you tomorrow in this new series on Burma. Beloved Myanmar, my beloved Burma, in support of their democracy, their freedom, their liberty from a psychological and world Dharma perspective. From my heart to yours, thank you. Have a great day.